Hello, friends. Hello, friends. Let me unmute Sarah here. Hello, Sarah.
Hi.
Let's turn the chiptunes down here for a second. How's everybody doing today? I'm sure there's a couple people that are in. Alrighty. So I'm in a very Desert Egypt theme mode right now, especially with the last last campaign for me, so Badoop, badoop. Alright, I think we have everything up. Stream hasn't crashed. It's a miracle.
Yeah, doesn't it usually crash at least once while you're
Yeah, I know, right?
every time? Good omen? Question mark?
Cox be on their shit today. Alrighty. Let's bring that over here.
Oh, that's why you're so loud. I had all of my sound mixing stuff turned all the way up because I was trying to hear music on Roll20 earlier.
Yeah, Roll20 is really quiet sometimes.
I know, my friend was trying to share music with me and I just had everything turned all the way up and I'm like, why is Jason yelling in my ear?
Yeah, my bad.
No, it's fine. It was my fault.
I try not to yell too much.
You weren't even yelling.
How's your 2 weeks been, Sarah?
I'm tired. I've been in con prep hell for like a month because I waited until a month before the con to work on anything.
Well, you know, last second results, they're always the best.
And then last minute prep for my own D&D session. Delayed.
Well, and you guys have, so for those of you here that don't know, hey guys, how you doing? Sarah also has another D&D podcast that she's doing with her fiance that is super, super good. If you have a link to that, you should drop it in the chat. If you're in the C-Top Discord, it's in our promotions channel as well.
Let me go dig it up.
Super good.
I'll link the tweet. Copy, link the tweet. Is it gonna let me put it in the channel?
It should.
Okay, let's see. Oh, let me do it. Nice.
How many episodes have you recorded?
Just 2. Actually, we did one with Gus. Gabe is still editing that one.
Word.
Yeah.
I'm excited to see what Gus brings to the table. I'm sure it's entertaining.
It's a really funny episode. I don't talk a lot because I get my one thing and then I stop. You know how I am. It was pretty funny though. I like it better with 3 people over just 2 people.
Yeah,
I think that format works better.
It's definitely something that like benefits from having multiple people for sure.
Yeah.
All right. So I guess we should get started. Today's topic is about table trouble, or all the issues that you have as a DM and as a player. I guess you have some of these issues that arise when you're creating games, but more so when you're playing the games. Things that are happening like when the games are going on, or with your party, or stuff like that. We've got a lot of stuff written down on this one. It could be 2 episodes. Who knows?
I definitely went off on this one.
this will be mostly about a lot of my past games, like way in the future past. But yeah, some of them are pretty recent, I'd say. Either which way, all of these issues, if you've DM'd one game or 100 games, one of these issues has come up for sure.
Did you put the webcams on the thing, or does it just say
Oh, no, I didn't.
Okay.
I didn't switch the screen.
It's
hey.
it's the Rats and It's a Mumble show today.
You know what? I'm cool with that, to be honest.
Let's just replace us with them.
You know what? I've been trying to figure out like what was missing to you. Because like I can see our webcams out of the corner of my eye, like in the top corner on the screen, but it wasn't there. And I couldn't figure out what was wrong.
I just thought that like my internet was being bad or something, and then I looked and I was like, no, it's been a long time. It's not that behind.
Yeah, no, I'm just trash at Twitch. Let's see. What's the first thing that we have? Okay, the first thing that's written down word for word is being a rules jerk to the point of talking down to everyone else at the table. So please explain.
So not everyone is gonna be as... I read the whole book. I've read the whole book 8 times.
Yeah.
I know every rule. It's written down on my wrist. I got it permanently tattooed. And like, I think that like when you go hardcore on the rules, it can scare people away from your table. Especially if you like are super hardcore about some rules and not others, or like pick favorite. I don't know. I don't actually remember what I was thinking when I wrote that, but I was thinking something because it literally says that.
Well, so I think we wrote this document, or at least started working on this document right after we played like our first one shot together that Roy ran.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a very like specific person there that always had something to say about like a rule or a ruling or whatever. I think the thing to remember about this is the rules are a guideline at the very least. They're there to allow you to like be able to actually play the game. Like they're only there to like help you in a way to like facilitate your story or your game or whatever you're trying to do. And I think maybe trying to explain that to players that are like that, like, hey, yeah, I know that there's rules, but they're really only written down so we can continue doing this. It's not like we have to use them. I think the other part of that too is realizing that some people look at D&D like a video game.
Mm-hmm. I think that kind of goes back to our first episode where we set expectations and you talk to everyone before you even get to the table, how hardcore you're going to be on rules or not. Don't blindside someone by like screaming about rules in the middle of the game or something. Same goes for players. Like if you know it's like a chill game, don't freak out about rules.
Yeah, and there's a lot of stuff too that like you could do something where like say a player asks about advantage or whatever, or flanking damage and how it works.
The flanking.
And you make an on the spot ruling because you're not very, very sure, or you think you are sure. And that ruling either ends an encounter or like finishes an encounter a different way or something like that. And then your player like looks it up later. Wait until after the session to deal with it. Let the session continue. And then talk to that player, like let the player come to you and be like, hey, this is what it is written down or whatever. And that's perfectly fine. Be like, yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't think about it, or it just worked better for me and my games to do it this way. And then come to a resolution together. That way the player doesn't feel like they're just being ignored, or that all of the rules are only ever in your favor.
Yeah, or like my least favorite is when like they're like, oh, I think it works like this, and the DM's like, well, no, I think it works like that, and then you just hear the furious typing as they're googling it, and then like 5 minutes later, well, actually I found an article on Reddit, and I think the rule goes like that.
That drives me crazy too. That's probably one of my biggest pet peeves in DMing is like I'll come up with a ruling, and whether or not I'm right or wrong, like just let it go. We can talk about it after.
Yeah.
Don't bring it, like, don't 2 minutes later as we're like into a different encounter or something else, like, well, like no.
We moved on our whole lives, like 10 minutes later, like, so actually that rule, no.
that drives me nuts. And it catches me out a lot because, especially for me, I've played so many different versions of this game that a lot of things have changed. And my mind immediately like picks up a movement system from 3.5 or, 4E or something like that. And that's like the rule in my head. And then like it's different in 5E. So like I'll immediately like say the rule off the top of my head really quickly. And then like, well, no. It's like written like this. And I'm like, okay, cool.
I think flanking is a good example of that.
Yes.
Because flanking is under, I think, like optional rules in 5th edition.
Yep.
Straight up optional. So like, it's up to the DM if flanking is real or not.
There's a lot of optional stuff in 5e, like feats. It is totally up to your DM whether or not feats are allowed. They don't have to be allowed.
You want to skip to that one?
Is that on there?
Oh yeah, that's on there. You wrote that one.
Did I?
I didn't, because I don't care about feats either way. I always just take roleplay feats.
Oh, metagaming feats.
Yeah.
That's a different thing.
Yeah, that's a different thing.
Well, the only thing for feats that I like had in relation to like this conversation or whatever was, I don't have to let you have feats, and you don't have to take feats. And that's part of setting expectations or whatever. Like I'll tell a group before the game starts, like, hey, no feats. Because for a lot of times, feats are super overwhelming to the DM.
Like, actually, I can see through that wall with my x-ray vision. Like, where'd you get that x-ray vision? It's like, oh, a feat, probably.
It's super overwhelming sometimes, especially if you're a new DM too. With like some of the feats are like really overpowered in a lot of situations.
Which feat are you talking about, Jason?
I mean, the longbow feat, sharpshooter can get overpowered as crap for no reason.
You have to like rebalance fights as a DM when you see that feat, or you just start pelting extra HP onto your monsters.
Yep. Or like, the mobile feat on like a rogue is also ridiculously OP. It just gives them a bunch of other movement options where like it doesn't affect anything, and like
they already have
already like yeah
options. Okay.
I hate rogues. Anyways. But to continue on to that, the next thing that we had written was fact checking the DM constantly.
Yeah, that went along with what we were just talking about. Like, again, don't 10 minutes later be like, well, actually, I looked up the rule. No.
Well, so I have a different thing to this.
Okay, what you got?
So I've got, say, a dragon or whatever, and it's a blue dragon, but I don't use it in a desert, and I don't use it with electricity. I use it in like a swamp, and I use it with like poison breath or something like that. Pen, thanks for the follow. Don't like come at me and be like, what do you mean he's got poison breath? It's a blue dragon.
Well, I did that, and my players were like really trying to figure it out, and I was like, it's like my RP dragon for the story. It was like a black necrotic dragon or something, and they were like super trying to figure it out meta wise. I'm like, guys, you know me, it's just reskin something else. So I didn't have to completely make up something new.
Or like a hag that like it doesn't do what like a green hag would do. She does what like a night hag would do, or something else, or like a succubus or any of those. Like, don't come at me as the succubus is going on and be like, or, ooh, I've had this happen multiple times and it drives me nuts. Don't count HP. I've had players that will like calculate the amount of HP or damage done to like an enemy and then be like, a blue dragon only has 237 hit points.
Oh man, no one's ever done that to me. I think we're all too bad at math to do that though.
And I'm like, well, sure, but this blue dragon specifically doesn't have that for whatever reasons, because as a DM sometimes you need to throw a little bit of extra HP or take some HP away.
Because of like sharpshooter or something.
Well, or just because like your group is killing something way too quickly, or who knows what it is.
I've done that a bunch.
I don't even have like a good solution for dealing with that problem other than talking to the player after the session and being like, look, knock it off.
I mean, that honestly goes under metagaming.
Yeah.
Like, which is our next topic.
It's like the only topic.
It's like, yeah, the whole doc, if I had a word count for metagaming, just half the doc. But yeah, that's like, I've never had anyone do that. That would drive me nuts.
It's
everything I make is, well, not a homebrew, but I just mash a bunch of stuff together that works for me like every time. So no one knows what I'm actually like doing or where I got it from or like how much HP something has. They did that to me. Try.
It's super, super, super obnoxious. It's probably one of like the worst things that you can do as a player for sure.
Yeah.
It like it completely like breaks the game too, because like I'll like for like a boss encounter is what I call them or whatever. Like I give those bosses or those characters like backgrounds and shit too. So like there's maybe a reason that that dragon's a little bit beefier than like your normal adult dragon or whatever.
Yeah.
Maybe it's had a hard life or it's been through some kind of encounters or something like that. Maybe,
like
you know,
a god or something.
Yeah, maybe it's like a level 21 dragon and not a level 19 dragon like is in the DMG or the monster manual.
Like, let me be creative.
Jesus. Yeah. But yeah, that one's super, super bad. But like I said, the only solution I have for that really is like pulling the player to the side and being like, no.
Can you not?
Yeah, can you don't, please?
Can you don't, please? Thanks.
Also, my other solution to that would be acknowledging that they said that and then continuing the fight anyways. Being like, oh, that dragon's only 237 HP and being like, yep, okay, the dragon hits you. Like, it's not down.
So if they bring it up again, then you definitely have to talk to them. Because confronting a player is never fun or easy, especially if that's the kind of person you're dealing with to begin with anyway.
Let's see. The next thing is metagaming. In big, bolded letters.
Yeah. Me. Let's see.
Picking certain things just to do more damage or brag about it.
Yeah, so like min-maxing is fun, right? Like that can be fun sometimes, but like to min-max and then brag about it constantly to like the other players, like, oh, I did the final hit, or like, oh, this or that, like that's no fun for anyone involved. Like nobody wants to hear that.
No, yeah, I super agree with that. Or like the everybody levels at the same time or whatever, and they all like share their spell list with each other.
Oh yeah, that was a problem that I had heard about recently.
Yeah.
It's like, that definitely goes under metagaming. What I do is I make them talk about it in character, because that could be a fun conversation if the party is really bonded or whatever. Like they get their spell books out and they're like, yeah, I've got this spell. This could be useful here if we run into that problem again or whatever.
Yeah, for sure. And like, that specifically, like I've always tried to do like in character. There was a session I did a long time ago where I was playing a barbarian, and a friend of mine, Plummet, who's here occasionally, was playing a druid, and we realized that I was hitting better when he was in his direwolf form with pack tactics and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So like the two characters had an RP discussion about like when he should turn into what animal to benefit like the fight, and we like came up with hand signals as like characters or whatever.
Oh, that's so cute.
Yeah.
I love that. Yeah, in my Saturday session, my warlock and the sorcerer in the party, sometimes they actually hang back as we start initiative to talk about what they're gonna do, and like they're left behind a little bit because they're like talking about spells and shit. It's really funny.
Or there's like, but my point is like there's ways to power game or, you know, try to min-max or whatever in game, in character. And like if you have a player that's like super video gamey about how they pick their slots and all that kind of stuff, maybe suggest ways that they could do it in character to them, instead of just being like, hey, don't do that. Maybe be like, hey, you can do that, but you need to do it in character. Here's like a way you could do that.
Yeah.
Or whatever.
That's a good solution there.
Let's see. OP homebrew suggestions to a DM at a constant. I hate.
I think that a lot of this goes back to the first episode every time. Just tell them, like, from the get-go, like, you can't have this homebrew thing. I personally love a homebrew shit, So I can't just be like, yeah, you can't ever have homebrew ever again. Don't look at me, because I'm gonna be giving them homebrew shit as the session goes. But then you've got like say you've got like a shop or whatever, and then you've got a player that's just like, hey, can I have this thing that I found on Google? And it's like, your character didn't go to Google. They're at the shop.
Yeah.
Like, you can't Amazon in this like really OP item.
D&D Amazon, yeah.
Yeah.
Drone delivery service on like imps and shit, yeah.
No, that's cute. Don't give me ideas. But no, they're still not allowed to Google search it. They don't have Google yet.
Well, so,
or ever.
Like, for me, the homebrew thing that drives me nuts is like homebrew classes and stuff. Like, this is gonna ruffle feathers with a lot of people. I don't like Warforged. Here we go.
Yeah. I don't care. They're not very cute.
It's not even that. It's just like Warforged don't fit my idea of the time setting for D&D a lot of the time. And I get that it's like a fantasy thing or whatever, and I understand all that. But like, so it doesn't fit with me or like the story I'm trying to tell or something like that. So a lot of times it's easier for me to just be like, please don't. Like, it just breaks immersion for me, for you to be Warforged or whatever. And now they're in the fucking Eberron guide, so I'm never gonna not see them.
Yeah. Yeah, that's kind of like, I don't mind this too much because it's kind of a running joke with my friends in my sessions, but everybody wants a gun. And I'm like, there are no guns.
Yeah.
You can't have a gun. And then I finally let them kind of have a gun, but only like 2 people can have the gun. And it's not them.
Or like people that like go online to find like these compendiums or whatever, and then like, so the Final Fantasy XIV community, which a lot of our, you know, friends and fans are, they have like their own compendium that they've come up with, and you know, they're like trying to run D&D sessions as Final Fantasy XIV, which is great if you're running the whole session in that Final Fantasy XIV setting.
Yeah.
That stuff is broken. Final Fantasy XIV is super broken in like a normal D&D session, but like people constantly like trying to bring homebrew classes or homebrew races or something like that from one of those compendiums, or like picking and choosing spells from those compendium spell lists and like just throwing them on their character sheet and not like telling you, and then using the spell in game and then being like, oh no, I found this spell over here. Like, that spell doesn't exist just because you found it.
Fantasy Google doesn't have that, or the weird item that you want. Just use the books or take it to the DM first. Like, what was I gonna say? Yeah, like the game I was running, the player ended up leaving the session recently, but he was playing like a homebrew class I let him play, and then I was like, I've made a mistake. As a DM, really look over what they're bringing to the table, or you're gonna get fucked over.
If you want to play homebrew, so this does go back to that first episode about setting expectations. Before I start a game, after I've like made everything like story and all that kind of stuff, I give myself like 2 weeks where like everybody make the character, you know, first session or whatever, before first session or anything like that, make your characters and, you know, send me their character sheets and all that kind of stuff. That's like 2 to 3 weeks before the game even starts. So that way I can session 0 everybody, but also so that way if somebody wants to play like a homebrew class or something like that, I can like super balance it out or be like, nah dog. Like I don't have the time or patience enough to balance this class.
Oh, it was a mess.
Yeah. But I think my solution for that would just be to, especially the like coming up with an item during the middle of the session, or like coming up with a spell during the middle of the session or something like that, is to just not allow it. Just be like, no, if it's homebrew, we need to talk about it beforehand. If you want to use it next session, we'll talk about it after this session or whatever, but you can't just like pull it from the ether.
Yeah, I look at everyone's character sheets after they level now, and it's not because I don't trust them, it's because I want to be prepared.
Yeah, that's a good point, to be honest.
Because I'm just like, I don't want to be blindsided by this, like, please. Yeah. The next thing we have is, I guess this applies more to, like, Roll20 games. Most people I know who use Roll20, and we all play online together. And you've got the people who want to roll their real dice. and you hear the dice roll, and they just keep rolling really high, like every time. And it's really cool that they would do that every single time. And it's like, I'm like, you know, if you want to lie about this game, fine. Like, that's on you, I guess, but...
No, I mean, the thing about that is it kind of like ruins the game for everybody else, in my opinion. Because like you're basically, D&D is like a group game. So when you create this character and they're always rolling 20s or 19s or 18s or whatever, you like single out that character to being like the god character. And now the game is about you and your character, and like all the other characters are just like backup characters and sidekicks to your character. Like,
yeah, I never thought about it like that. I like every character having their own arc or whatever in a session, if that's the type of session you run. I definitely do that with my own session.
Yeah.
But like having one person rolling like a nat 20 like 4 or 5 times a night, I'm just like, all right, guys, you ruined it for everyone. Time to roll in roll 20, which is also shitty because I remember I made a deception check 3 times and it critically failed 3 times. I've got a plus 13 modifier to that on that character. Yeah. I'm just like, oh, geez, that's so awful. I hate Roll20.
Yeah, Roll20 can be a harsh mistress. The other thing we have written about Roll20 is the line of sight tool. If you've got Pro, which if you're a DM and you run multiple games, or if you run like a weekly game, I seriously recommend getting at least the $4.99 tier for Roll20, to be completely honest.
Or get somebody who does to make the room for you, and then it has that tool on it. That's what I do. So we only have to pay $4.99 for our household.
But it's the line of sight thing is a pretty good thing to have with like mapping. If you've got a player that, like that one game that we were talking about with the Rory's, if you've got a player that like uses the map to metagame, which happens a lot, and they'll like make decisions based off a room that everybody else in that everybody else is in that their character couldn't possibly see, but they're like making decisions off of characters, like off of things that other characters can see, is super.
I think the worst instance I've seen of that is we had a really talkative player in one of my sessions that would talk over other people, and one of the characters, I think they were like looking down a well or something, and they talked about seeing something in the well, and this character that was across the map who hasn't had their turn to like say anything yet, they move their token over there and just start talking over everyone. Like, you didn't see that in the well or whatever.
Yeah.
The line of sight tool is also great for that. It's like, I think that person was like behind a building or something and didn't even see the well at all yet. So like,
yeah, it's ridiculous.
I'm just like, stop, please.
What else do we have? Metagaming feats. So picking a feat if your DM allows feats, specifically when the purpose of player versus DM, break the game as hard as you can. Like picking a feat that matches your character's like background and stuff like that, like isn't a big deal. But if you go out of your way to like, oh, this is the way the story's going, oh, I can kind of tell like where this is where we're going, I'm gonna purposely pick this feat even though it has nothing to do with my character, because I can tell that that's where the story's going.
Oh yeah, like I was I don't think I even do this very often, but one of the players said that I was using too many different languages, and their character took the one where you like know a bunch of extra languages or something, that feat, because they felt like I was going to keep doing that, so they picked that and everything. I'm like, I didn't even use that many languages. It was probably Infernal because they're all tieflings.
Oh my god. Not everybody's in love with tieflings like you are.
That's the true meta game, is making a tiefling for one of my sessions.
Yeah, so, like knowing that you're going into Sarah's session.
No, I think I was using a lot of Abyssal or something, which is a really obscure language anyway. It had to do with one of the NPCs, but like, they picked that just because they wanted to talk more. And I'm like, well, I put the different things for different players to talk to in the session so everybody gets a chance. And it's like, I want to talk more, so I'm going to pick all the languages. Like, no.
Yeah. The other thing with metagaming too is like, if you let it, metagaming will completely break like your game and the immersion and ruin it for everybody else too. So like I have pretty drastic metagaming consequences, like in the middle of a game. My whole thing is Bahamut, which I'm sure I've talked about before, but I'll talk about him again. Bahamut.
You bring him out.
He sits on my desk. He guards my desk dice. But Bahamut is like the guardian of the planes. Like he sees all traffic between planes. So my deal is like Bahamut sees our plane of existence, you know, the IRL plane or whatever you want to call it, like, and that information being transferred into the game or whatever. So like I use Bahamut to like completely raffle stomp metagaming as soon as it happens in game. A notable example is map metagaming in an IRL session where they kind of like knew what was going to happen or whatever. They used that to their advantage, and they went in like a really roundabout way. So I had Bahamut show up, explain why he was there, and then he blinded the party for 10 minutes. So even though like one character was the one that made the metagame thing happen or whatever, the whole party was affected, and like they were terrified of the prospect of metagaming from that point forward.
I like doing metagame damage. I'll tell you about a DM actually, because my players listen to this sometimes and I've got more plans for it. But yeah, putting in things like that as a DM, it's fun and it's kind of silly and like everyone likes it, but you're also getting your point across, so it like works out for everyone.
Especially to the point where like sometimes like you'll have players that like traveled to different games with you. Like you're making a new game or whatever, and you've got good players that you want to play with more, so you like invite them to your next game or whatever. But those players have that experience from your previous game. So like Plummet is one of the characters that got blinded or whatever. And like when we started the new game that you just guested in on Friday or whatever, when that game started and I explained Bahamut, I was like, you can ask Plummet what Bahamut does or whatever. And he was very quickly to be like, no, we're not dealing with that. Like,
don't metagame or you have to deal with this. Like, what if you metagame at a really bad time in the session and you're blinded for 10 minutes, like in a really important boss fight, like.
And I'm the kind of jerk, as Sarah will attest, that will 100% do that. I do not bend like what I've set up as like the rules of the universe or whatever, pretty much at all. In fact, I just killed my own character.
It was my fault.
Oh my god, whatever.
Well, it was a joint effort.
Yeah.
You made her act
bad
like
decisions.
that. Yeah. You made her act like that, and I brought her back up to life or whatever.
Yeah. She went a little banshee, to be completely honest, but it's alright.
She'll be okay.
Yeah, in the afterlife somewhere.
Yeah, somewhere.
But my point is like if metagaming was an issue then during that fight, I would have included Bahamut in that fight.
3 dragons. No, 1 was enough.
Yeah. Well, I mean, to be fair, the second dragon wasn't there to ruin it for you. You also have to realize, like, as a player, this is very important as a player too. I feel like a lot of players, definitely not all or anything like that, but a lot of players take for granted the amount of like work that the DMs do for it. Like they don't think about it. Like they don't do it on purpose. They just don't think about it because, hey, we're just showing up for our weekly thing and like, let's play. We play for 4 hours and hey, that was 4 hours. They don't think about the 10 hours it took the DM to like do any of the other stuff.
Yeah.
Metagaming really like ruins your DM's day a lot of time. So for a player, I think it's important to think like, even though if you're trying to like maybe power game or you just want to win because that's the kind of person you are and stuff like that, which is fine, you need to think about the fact that you're probably like completely ruining your DM, even if they don't say anything.
Silence here.
Because that's what happens. It's kind of like heartbreaking is like a really extreme word to use for it or whatever, but it kind of is. It's like a lot of work.
I'll use it.
Yeah.
I'll use it. It's heartbreaking when someone just like, And I'm all for players like doing cool things that I didn't expect, but do it in character. If you're just like metagaming around it or whatever, like I think like not with my players I have specifically right now, but people I've DM'd for in the past, they are like they're familiar with my characters, so they know what I'm gonna do probably with that character, and so they like metagame around it. They know that they're going to be double crossed by this NPC, so they're gonna act out or whatever. But like, just let me have this,
right.
Please.
For sure, dude. Like, please, just let me.
Please.
What do we have next? Oh, role-playing issues.
Time for me to go off again.
Lack of roleplay is the first thing that we have. I actually have a pretty good solution for this, but you can talk about it if you want.
Well, what's your solution first, actually?
Well, so my solution is a lot of times with like lack of roleplay, it's a player that's probably not confident in their role-playing abilities, or they just don't know how to do it, or they've never done it before or whatever. So a lot of times when I'm realizing that there's like a lack of like character development between the players, like the characters interacting with each other, I'll do this thing where I end the session early, but I leave like 45 minutes or an hour for round table or in talk or whatever, where all of your characters are sitting at the inn at a table and you're just having an in-character discussion for 45 minutes to an hour for the last hour of the session or whatever, about whatever your characters would want to talk to each other about. This is where you learn about people's backstories, or you ask them weird questions about their childhood. It's that bonding experience that the characters would be having that you always end up skipping over because you're trying to like play the game. And I just like have people play it out, and you'd be surprised at how many people like start talking when they're like directed to talk.
No, I mean that's actually what I did. I'll just say it. Rory made a huge joke character for my session. I said it was fine. He was allowed to make his joke character, but I made him care about that character. And now every time that character comes on the screen, it's like some like angst-ridden, like sad story. It's so funny. But like that's what I did. I was like, you guys are at the inn, like hanging out, talking. Throw an NPC in there and have the NPC ask questions.
So a lot of my sessions, I play a PC. I will have a PC that does the party, it goes with the party throughout the whole thing, and it's usually to fill out whatever the party is lacking. Like this party that I have on Friday nights is lacking, or was lacking, heals really bad, so I made that cleric specifically so that way they would have that just in case. But that allows you on those in nights or whatever to be in character as that PC and completely forget that you're a DM or whatever, and further that discussion with everybody.
The double-edged sword with that is don't let how do I explain this? So up until recently, the party I was DMing for was kind of split. Like we had 2 people and 2 people and then 1 person. And then my NPC got pretty friendly with one of the players, and then that's the only person they would talk to about everything.
Yeah.
And so I ran into that problem. Now the session as a whole is in a better place, and everyone kind of talks to each other. But like that's the thing with the NPC. Sometimes the players will isolate themselves to talk to the NPC instead or something.
Kelsey, you'll never know. Let's see. Yeah, but that's the easiest solution I think I have to that, is like kind of like forcing that situation on everybody, because like forcing a role play scenario in the middle of like a high strung event or something like that, like forcing a character to RP to an emperor or something that's like super out of their comfort zone, is just going to lead to like bad RP and probably make them super anxious to the point where they don't want to play anymore. Which is fair.
Yeah, I've made that mistake. I never had anyone leave because of that, but I definitely made that mistake a lot when I was really new to DMing. Just make them roleplay with each other. They're more comfortable with each other than like the emperor that they don't know or whatever.
Especially with like as a DM too, if you're confident enough to run a session or be a DM, then you're probably confident to some degree of RP. And that doesn't always translate to your players. Like there's a lot of people that play D&D because they think it's cool and it's a cool concept or whatever, but that doesn't mean that they're confident with role play.
Yeah. I think when I wrote that bullet, I was talking more about people who can role play and know how to role play, but just don't for some reason. And I guess the best solution to that is to just talk to them, which is never fun. Like I said, like bring one of your players to the side and be like, "Hey, we need to talk." But
or another thing too with lack of role play is, with players that you know that aren't confident about it or something like that, make sure that after the session you tell your players like what a great job they did, or bring up points about what they RP'd about or whatever that you personally actually liked, like legitimately liked, and make sure that they know about it. Because you might think that you translated how cool or excited you felt like playing the game or whatever, but like giving them that actual validation or whatever.
Give
like
them inspiration.
Yeah, that too. Inspiration dice.
Every player has inspiration dice all the time in my session because I love them all so much and they're all so good. I'm just like, take it.
I have I like fell off the wagon with inspiration dice. I'm trying to get back into it. I think I've only given out in the Red Ivy session that we do every Sunday. I've only given out 1 inspiration dice in that whole campaign so far.
Another thing that gets them to role play more, I guess, is do an RP vote at the end of the night and have the players vote for each other but not themselves. Because it's like, I really liked what this person did, and then they'll like explain it, and that's been like a fun bonding experience that we do.
That's a pretty good idea, yeah, for sure. Out of character actions.
Also see metagaming.
I don't know exactly what you meant by that.
I guess like maybe this falls under like murder hoboing, kind of like this session has been going on for a while, and like somebody just does something really drastically out of character and has no way to justify it to anyone, not even the DM. And it's like, why did you do that?
Yeah.
How do you deal with that if someone just starts like going off it's like, are you chaotic looking at their sheet? Like, what are you doing?
Yeah, that usually, the murder hobo thing had severe consequences. Like, if you're gonna murder hobo in a game that's not set for murder hobo, and be prepared to fight the level 18 town guards and stuff. Like,
yeah, that's a pretty easy solution, huh?
Yeah, or leave a dead body in the streets. Be prepared to go to jail, even if wasn't out of character.
What did you have in your session? You had like guards show up the next day.
Yeah, like they went to sleep in the inn and they came back outside and there was like people investigating a murder in the streets because there was a murder in the streets.
They left the body outside and thought that it would just like turn to dust like in a video game.
Yeah.
But it was still there. That's good. I like that.
But that wasn't necessarily out of character. They just made a bad judgment call or whatever. Yeah. So there was consequences for it. But I can definitely see like I'm playing a cleric that's a life cleric or whatever, but I'm perfectly okay with like murdering the children of my enemy. Like, no, you're not.
Yeah, that's what I meant. It's like, it's not something I've dealt with personally, but like, I thought it might be an issue.
No, I mean, yeah, I've had issues like that before. Or like, one of my other games where we play as pirates, the game didn't start out like that. It kind of just migrated towards that. And unfortunately, one of the characters is a paladin, who's pretty lawful and stuff. So, I mean, eventually that guy had to like let his character go and like re-roll a new character because story-wise, there's no way that character could continue like in our piracy obnoxiousness.
That's like so sad.
Yeah.
Aww.
I mean, he's a good sport about it and everything, which is great.
No, it's just sad to hear like he had to let go. Yeah, I actually had something similar happen with the very first session that I ran because everyone but one person made evil characters by accident, and they were like, my character's not evil, this or that, and I'm like,
no,
okay.
But they are.
Yeah, and then there was just this one guy, like this little wizard boy, and he's like, oh, I love kittens and blah, blah. It's like, ugh. So what I did is I just restarted the session with him instead. Oh, I didn't know how to DM for a bunch of evil characters. Maybe someday I'll do that.
Being mean to others in and out of character. Yo. So there's one thing to roleplay a drow who's like a bitch. And then there's one thing to just be mean because you're a bitch. And it, like, I've seen that a lot. Or like people like making people feel bad about their RP choices, but they do it like in character, so they're like trying to pretend like it's their character talking, but really they're just like trying to be pissy. That's stuff that you need to like immediately kill on the table, like as it happens.
It's hard. I dealt with something like this very recently, and it's really hard to kill it on the table. Yeah. And I tried to pull them to the side and talk to them, but they weren't very communication happy. So then I finally just put both of the players in a chat room together and told them to talk it out. And
I mean, yeah, that's a good idea.
It didn't work out very well, and I ended up kicking the player, but I tried that. Those were my solutions.
Yeah.
It's like when they finally said how they felt they did it too aggressively for me to be able to handle properly, because I'm a big sensitive baby, but they were also super mean, and I was just like, no, I don't want meanies at my table. I don't want meanies. So I kicked them.
No, I mean, sometimes you have to kick somebody. That's just the way it is.
Oh, I was so like broken about it for days. I lost sleep over it, and I'm like, they were mean to me. Why am I so upset?
The other thing too is like sometimes being the DM means being the adult of a bunch of fucking children.
Hurting cats.
Like you were there for Friday's game, where everybody was real sassy at the beginning of the game for whatever reason. You know, I mean, everybody was just trying to have fun or whatever, and that's understandable. But like I eventually had to be like, "Yo, everybody's being real sassy."
I don't remember people being sassy.
I mean,
maybe I'm just used. I'm just used to people acting like that.
No, I'm playing it up more than it is. Like, it wasn't super horrible or anything like that, but I definitely had to like say something like, "Hey, y'all being sassy. I'm gonna ruin y'all's life."
Speeding through the last bullet points.
Oh yeah. No, what else do we have? Not being a team player, which we talked about already. Like,
yeah, that actually we ended up tying into the last thing.
Making sure that, or you as a player making sure that you like roll better than everybody else, and like you try to like the people that try to like turn every story into something about them specifically.
I like players picking things from my story and getting attached to it. That's fun, but trying to make every aspect of the story about you. I'm more about making the story about the players anyway. Yeah. Like more about them than like anything I made. So they don't get to really do that, I guess, in my groups, but yeah.
What else do we have?
Let's just go back to that bottom bullet point, and then we'll see if we have time for the other one.
All right,
the rogue problem, stealing from the party.
Yeah. So Sarah's got some stuff about rogues.
You love rogues, Jake.
I hate rogues. Rogues and locks. I hate them both.
You only warlocks? Now you do a separate
I hate locks.
No, my boy is a warlock.
Eldritch Machine.
He does more than that.
Now, right?
A lot more than that. Yeah, I didn't. Well, actually, I didn't get to play.
Discovery.
Well, no, I didn't get to play him until like level 9. I started him at level 9, so I didn't have to deal with all of that bullshit. So maybe that's why I like him. So basically, cut my locket to pieces.
Jesus, Kelsey.
Basically, like a rogue with their backstory, they can get away with being like, aha, I steal all the time. I steal from these NPCs, and you know, eventually they're gonna roll poorly, and like that's gonna suck for them. But when they start stealing from the party, like right in front of them, even like that's hard to like nip in the bud, because they can be like, oh, it's my character. Like this is just who my character is.
So in fact, in the Sunday games, Shijin played a rogue named Stisk.
I like this already.
Whose character was pretty universally hated by the party he was playing with. The problem is here, it was a bad mixture of like me explaining what was going on and like his role play and stuff too. So his backstory, his character was like a spy working for a government and all this other crazy stuff that he had going on. So like his character was very standoffish, and he would like disappear for lengths of time, and like, you know, very shady stuff that any normal party would be like, yo, why you be so shady all the time?
Why are you like this?
Yeah. But unfortunately it made like for kind of bad RP moments. Oh, Strawberry Salsa with the host. Thank you, Sarah. Welcome, friends of Sarah's. If you don't know what we do, really quickly, we are Charity Top. We are a TTRPG group. We are doing all of this for charity. Everything goes directly to NAMI, the National Alliance for Mental Illness, or I'm sorry, on mental illness, which is working very hard to end the stigma on different mental illnesses and give people treatment that wouldn't be able to get it as well. We play a game, a D&D game every Sunday. We do this DM podcast every other Tuesday. We will be running PvP D&D here very soon. We're running Starfinder on the channel very, very soon. I am doing a character creation camp on Friday. If any of that sounds interesting to you, please give us a follow. Also, if you're interested in playing games with us or other friends or other nerds or talking about D&D, join us on Discord. Let me drop that. That Discord be bumping all the time. It's pretty active, and it's like all D&D focused. It's great. I love that Discord.
I'm excited about it.
But anyways, so back to what I was saying. So his character was pretty misunderstood because of it, but like it wasn't misunderstood in like, oh, he's just mysterious. It was like hate. Like the rest of the party hated his character.
In or out of character?
Both, kind of, yeah. Tiny, who is probably the most like vocal character of the group and everything like that, was very like adamantly out about him and stuff. Even though everything that he did in character, like for the party, was helpful or beneficial or something like that, it's just like the way everything was done because he was a rogue and a spy was like, it made everybody kind of like angsty and angry.
Didn't set well.
Yeah. But it's fine now because I RP'd a reason for him not to be in the party anymore that worked out really well, and now he's playing a Kenku, which has been great so far.
Kenku are like the best.
I love my Kenku.
Me too. Your Kenku and also my Kenku. Yeah, they need to party together at some point.
But yeah, I think the rogue problem is for your thing of the stealing with the party, like I think how I would handle that is I would give the party more ways to catch it.
Yeah.
I could DM for that, Gus, please.
Gus loves Hey Sunshine. She would die for Hey Sunshine. So would everyone. She'd let it happen.
But I think that's what I would do, is just like, oh, are you going to steal from their bag? Okay. Well, I'm going to give them like this insight check and this perception check, you know.
They just line their dice up and roll them like, all right.
Because I mean, yeah, sure, you'd be able to do that every once in a while, but like, one, why would your character want to? But if your character did want to, like, you're spending so much time with this other person in your party, there's no way that they wouldn't notice you acting weird about something or...
And then you've got party members, like, who would want to travel with someone like that, probably?
Exactly, and that's another thing, too. Like, if you want to risk stealing from the party, then you also risk not being in that party anymore.
Yeah.
So you risk not being in the game anymore, and that's not everybody else's fault. That's your fault. That was our problem player.
Thanks, Gus. Call me out.
No, I mean, like, oh well, you stole from the group, and now the group doesn't want to hang out with you anymore. I guess I'll see you in another game sometime. Like, I'm not gonna make 2 sessions out of this 1 session just for you, you know?
Oh man, that was another thing with my session, is it almost broke off into 2 different sessions, and I was like, no, nope. I don't have time for this. I can't DM 2 sessions. I barely have time to DM 1. You guys are just lucky. I like you.
Yeah, there's no way. We talked about playing to win. Sorry.
Yeah, metagaming.
The only other thing that you had that's really big deal is the a player that would have to leave an hour before or the player that would leave like an hour before a game.
Yeah, I'll explain. So I had this really great player, a joy to be around. Role played to a T. Every time we did the RP vote, she would get it. Everyone loved her. And a lot of the times, like an hour, 30 minutes before the game, she would message me and be like, sorry, I can't make it tonight. Something came up. It would always be vague. I would be like, really? And it was so hard to like kick this player or talk to them because they were like the light of the table. I was like, what do I do?
Yeah.
I had to eventually.
That's the thing. Well, I mean, that's the thing too, is like, do you ever want to play the game? Like,
yeah, it's like, are they worth like only playing once a month?
Yeah. But tardiness is a big deal, and that went back to like our setting expectations episode. But basically, like, and then we have another episode planned of like what to do when you cancel a game, and like there's other things that you could be doing besides not doing anything during that canceled game time. And I guess we'll talk about it more then. But basically, like, know when, like Sarah said, know when to kick the player, I guess, is probably the best. Like, know when to be like, your tardiness is starting to ruin everybody else's day, and like, I like this game, I'd like to continue playing it, and unfortunately that means
I would like to actually play.
Yeah. But yeah, I think we discussed everything.
We actually got through this whole doc. Proud of us.
Crazy. Yeah, so that's it. Do you want to plug all your stuff, Sarah?
It's all on the screen.
Yeah.
I don't really stream on Twitch, but I'd like to eventually, and that's Junkcat with the B, and I'm on Twitter, and I post there.
She lives on Twitter.
I do live on Twitter.
Again, they just released their podcast as well. Welcome to My Dungeon. I think you guys called it Welcome to My One Gen in the first episode or whatever.
Yeah, that was me not being able to speak. The premise of that, the premises of that is we talk to and interview our guests, and then everyone brings one thing to the table, and then we make a module out of it based off of like a randomly generated plot hook and stuff. And it was really fun. The first couple of episodes we've recorded already, so.
Yep, it's super great to listen to. It's in like the actual podcast format, not like the video format, so you can like, you know, share it to your RSS feed and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, anyways, we are DM Discussions. We are Charity Top. I will see you guys all on Friday at 5:30 for Character Camp. Other than that, you guys have a great rest of your week. Thank you for hanging out. We love you all. Bye.
Bye.